everything you need to know about awakening, you can learn from Willie Nelson. You don't even have to know Willie Nelson or know about Willie Nelson or know all of his history or all of his songs. Really, you just need one song. It's called Whiskey River, Take My Mind. In fact, you only need one verse from that song to understand what awakening is really about. And it's astounding to me that so much truth is conveyed through lines of poetry, lines of songs, if you really just sort through what they're actually pointing to. I'm joking a little bit about this, of course, but there's a very poignant truth in the lyrics of the song, and I want to sort of unpack it a little bit. So the other night I happened across something that showed a list of the oldest live performers that are still live performers, like touring and so forth. And at the very top, I thought it would be, I don't know who I thought, Bob Dylan and people like the Rolling Stones and so forth. And those guys, I think, are in their 80s now or right around there. Willie Nelson's 90. He was the top of the list. I was blown away by that. So I just to see what he's up to, I clicked around and found a couple live songs he had done, or a couple, like a live performance last year, 2023, when he would have been still 90 years old, I think. But one of them was Whiskey River. And I listened to the lines that I've known for years, but I listened to them more carefully, I suppose, and thought it was really interesting what it says, because this connects to something I've noticed about addiction, specifically substance addiction, alcohol, chronic like marijuana use, other opioids, other types of addictions that are potentially very, very destructive, as anyone who's been in that space knows. And even if you haven't had family members and so forth, you know. But extremely destructive and really overtaking, has that feeling of just completely overtaking your life. And the mechanism of it is really interesting to me, because I have had some insights into what that mechanism is, and it's a very simple thing, really, and it relates directly to what a human is oriented toward. What does a human want? And it's a very simple thing, really, or a very simple couple of things that we're oriented toward, what we want, that we're seeking, that we are chasing. And the most severe, extreme version of that is addiction, where the chasing of it, the insistence that these conditions are met, gets so acute that it's just hit after hit or drink after drink. It just has to be now. And so, my heart really goes out to anyone who has addiction or has had addiction, because it can be so destructive, but also be terrifying. It's terrifying to feel that take you over and know the destruction that's happening and not being able to stop, right? But the mechanism under it's very fascinating, and I wonder if over time more and more insight into this mechanism will help in these situations. But it also relates to the addiction, to the fundamental addiction to self, to the self structure, to the illusion of self, the illusion of separate self, which Paul Hederman, who is great, also a non-duality sort of speaker and so forth. You can find him on YouTube. He's pointed this out multiple times, that the ultimate addiction is the addiction to self. It's true. So what is the lyrics of this song, right? It starts out and it says, "Whiskey River, take my mind." Like, it doesn't get any clearer than that. He's asking whiskey, the experience of being drunk, essentially, to take his mind. Like, is the mind such an accursed place that we will use something as destructive as that, or as extreme as that, to just take it from us now? Yes, it is. Many people do this with alcohol in a more quote-unquote functional way. People who drink chronically, but maybe it's not become super destructive in their life, but maybe not the healthiest thing to be doing, but they're using it for that. They might say it's to relax them, or some people might say it's a social crutch or something. But ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're trying to quiet the mind. We're trying to soften that inner struggle, the struggle with thoughts. We think it's the struggle with the world, or we think it's a struggle with ourself, our self-doubt, our shame, our anger toward ourselves, and our grief maybe, or avoidance of grief and guilt. These are the things that come into play, right, when we have a lot of internal struggle. But the internal struggle, it's not actually in the body. It's not in the physical sense. It's not in any of the five senses. It's in the mind. It's with thought. We struggle with thought. The only thing we can struggle with is thought. That's it. But we mistake thought for the world, for actuality, for reality. We mistake thought for reality, and then we go to war with it. Or we feel completely beaten up by it. And then, of course, we find a substance at some point that just calms that mind enough so the struggle is just calm, less intense, and terrifying, less terrifying, right? And again, depending on maybe genetic factors or your own personal history, for some people it's extremely addictive, right? To find something that can just turn that off to a degree for a period of time. I really think this is what's behind addiction. This is the first half of it. And it's in the one line of the song, "Whiskey River, take my mind." Right? The next line is, "Whiskey River, take my mind. Don't let her memory torture me." So another clue, of course, into thoughts torturing you, into the internal struggle, which doesn't feel like an internal struggle. It feels like an external and internal struggle. It feels like struggle with everything, right? With ourselves and with control, right? There's so much control threaded into this. But it's all about thought. It's all about thought. It's all about belief. Belief in self and other. Belief in time, the past, my future, the next thing I'm going to do, what I'm guilty of, what I'm shameful for. We have to reference the past for that, which is only referencing thought. So it's a tragic joke. It's a tragic joke, but it's a joke in the end that there's nothing behind it. That's not actually happening. None of that's happening. But to the degree we believe in it, it becomes a vicious sort of demon in our minds, in our hearts, in our feeling of being me. And then with identification, then we become the addiction in a sense, right? I think Paul Hederman also has said many times, it's not that I have a problem. I am the problem, right? We've identified with those thoughts so much that we are the destructive force in our own life, right? And this is why a lot of types of modalities like a 12-step program starts with acknowledging that you've lost control, right? That you can't do this yourself. Need something beyond you. So all of that ultimately, though, really is thought. The behaviors, the body mind may have the addiction, but the thoughts amplify it. The thoughts amplify it so much. The identification with those thoughts amplifies the fear, and then the fear feeds into the wanting of the next drink or hit or whatever it is to, again, get me out of my mind. Take my mind. And then, of course, don't let her memory torture me. We know immediately this is about a breakup or a heartbreak or something, right? Again, a very poignant thing in many of our lives that lead to thoughts we really don't want to have around, right? You may find areas of your life you're very functional in, or very, you feel like you have it together, you don't feel reactive, you don't feel triggered or whatever. And then when there's a romantic, say, possibility or a breakup or a rift or anything, like all of a sudden there's so much intensity, so much emotion, so much reactivity. It just comes out of nowhere, or it seems to. But even that, it really ultimately comes down to thought, and the belief in subject, object, self, and other is very strongly emphasized in these experiences, right? And so that's what Willie's talking about. Don't let her memory torture me. He wants those thoughts to just be turned off. And you might say he wants the associated feelings to be turned off, right? We might say when we're feeling really angry towards someone that we're close to, or we're feeling like, there's a breakup and we feel heartbreak in regards to them, and the mind is making the picture of them. It's labeling the whole experience with them, but it's the feeling that we think we don't want. We think we don't want that feeling. It's the feeling, but that's the fundamental misperception about mind and body. It's the thoughts we don't want, not the feeling. The feeling is innocuous, not a problem. In fact, I might even say that the other half of the addiction equation, I think, is that when it calms the mind, it often puts attention in the body. So we feel like a buzz or a numbness or something, but it's a sensation. It's a feeling in the body. Our attention now is a little bit more in the body, right? That's what these experiences are. Is they are a sort of reversal of this fundamental and very powerful hypnotic spell of mind identification and apparent mind-body split, where attention is shooting up into the head, staying in the head, struggling in the head and the mind and the world of time and space and self and other and problems and solutions, and avoiding the sensation of just being in the physical body. Once we start to touch into the experience of being in the physical body sober without means that come with a hell of a lot of side effects and major detriments, then we start to actually feel out what equanimity really is. And we notice that equanimity is actually available without any substance, for sure. A far better form of it. There's equanimity available, and our contact with our physical, what we're calling physical, energetic body, that's where it really starts to stabilize. So this is a big fast forward in the realization process, but first thing we learn is not to, man, it's so interesting how these things come together. The Willie Nelson song, a list of insights someone just messaged me that I've known for a long time, and his insights were so clear, one after the other, and the way they stacked together was so beautiful, and I was responding to that recently. But the insights about thought, mind, consciousness, etc., kind of go in this order. The first insight is that I'm reacting to thoughts, that what I think is a world and a set of problems and me and my story and my everything, all the narratives, is nothing but thought. It's a really important insight. Second insight is that I'm actually what I'm reacting to is thoughts, and I don't have to react to thoughts. I don't have to push thoughts away or pull thoughts or manage thoughts, or to really see you don't have to do that is a sort of practice-based, or often arises in our practice, where we learn to actually sit and meditate and experience unbound consciousness. I point to this a lot in my guided meditations, my consciousness playlist. It's a skill that you can develop, and it's an important insight that you don't have to react to thoughts ultimately. And it becomes rather neutral. It becomes a very fluid, reasonably neutral space, and can become a tremendously expansive space, an all-inclusive space of consciousness. Some people would call it an I am sense. It feels like that to them. Not everybody does. You don't need to. But that's an experience that does come online when the other insights have dawned. That number one, I'm not struggling with a world in the way I think I am, or people, or myself, or my emotions, or thoughts. I'm struggling with thoughts about all of those, even thoughts about thoughts. So what I'm struggling with is the thought that feels ultimately so close that it feels like me, right? The difference between the I am sense and the I thought is worlds of difference. That's the real fundamental insight you get with awakening, essentially, right? So now we have this neutrality with thought, and we realize we don't have to react. But it's often very practice-based at this point, because it can fall apart quickly when we're in the world of the relative, and the reactivity can still be there. So then there's a couple ways this can go after that. But the next insight is very important. One is you can directly address reactivity, like say through Feder work, for instance. And the other is through various means. The next insight dawns, and that insight is not only is it inherently uncomfortable to be reactive to thought, to identify with and believe thought, it's actually inherently uncomfortable to have any identification with consciousness at all. This is deeper stage realization. But when that breaks, when that identity falls, it's a whole different world. And your attention is almost instantly or very easily relegated to the sense fields, the 5 sense fields. And there's such freedom there. There's such freedom, emptiness, fullness, nowhere to go, nothing to fix anymore, nothing to heal. And all of those things can still happen in the relative world. Things can change and fix, and you can heal, and there's relative birth and death, but all of that is so ephemeral, because when you're in contact with, or I'm going to say the unborn has been realized, then it's available all the time right here. There's nowhere to go, nothing to fix, nothing to repair, coming and going. These are interrelated relative ideas. Birth and death, interrelated relative ideas. And there's such a tremendous steeping in the body sense, what I'm going to call the body sense. There's no static anymore between the body and the mind. And then through the body sense, paradoxically and ironically, when we really drop into the body sense in this way, that's when we also see through the illusion of a physical body. Again, very ironic, but it's just the way it is. We see it's a formlessness comes with this, and this comes with formlessness. This dropping of the body mind, or the body mind just drops, and it's all that's left is this non-dualistic presencing. And it can be noticed in a sense field in particular, like one sense field, and it can also be rather synesthetic, noticed in all sense fields. And then there's just no sense fields. There's no self, no other, no sense fields, no differentiation between senses. But the fundamental discomfort of identification, the fundamental discomfort of suffering, struggle, is gone. And then you know, oh man, this is what we've always been after. This is what whether it's a severe acute addiction or whether it's just a background constant grind of feeling uncomfortable, feeling out of sorts, feeling unsatisfactoriness, suffering, to put it in a Buddhist sense, to feel the life of quiet desperation. So there's a big scale on a spectrum on which most of us lie at different times in our life. And sometimes it's an acute, addictive, intense, can't stand one more second of this experience. And sometimes it's just a slow grind, numb distance from life, pretty uncomfortable, but somehow I can sort of go on about this, keep hypnotizing myself into thoughts, right? Somewhere along that spectrum, the world of mind identification. But underneath all of it, regardless of where you are on that spectrum, there's the desire or the knowing that there's something possible, a different kind of way of moving through reality, moving through the world, whatever, is exactly those. You're not in your mind, but you didn't need the Whiskey River to take your mind. You've seen through it. Through insight, you've seen through it. And the second part is being completely steeped in the physical, in the sense of being alive. And then what's so beautiful is in the song Whiskey River, Whiskey River, take my mind, don't let her memory torture me. That's the misperception. It's not about her. It's not even about you. It's about the misperception of subject-object, of duality, of form. And when that's gone, then the next part of the song says, Whiskey River, don't take my mind, don't let her memory torture me. Whiskey River, don't run dry. You're all I've got to take care of me. That's really sad, isn't it? Whiskey is all I have to take care of me. But he just wants to be taken care of. We all just want to be taken care of, or just to know. We actually don't necessarily want to be taken care of. We want to know the feeling of being cared for fully and being totally settled and fundamentally okay. And the beauty of this is you don't need whiskey for that. You don't need marijuana. You don't need anything. You don't even need spiritual practices. But through a series of insights, through an orientation to truth, through practice, through diligence, through whatever it takes to break those delusive barriers, it is available to you, of course. And that's all you want, is you want that simplicity of aliveness that is non-dualistic. It's here. It has that comfortness, that home everywhere. That just fundamental okayness. That's all you wanted. Yeah. He thought he was going to get it from the whiskey. He thought he was going to get it from the partner. Turns out it's available without any of that. So there you go. Everything you needed to know about awakening and addiction, you can learn from Willie Nelson.